I discovered my late father's will leaves everything to a mysterious sibling I never knew existed. Investigating their identity reveals my parents' secret life as con artists and my role in their final scam. I thought my father was an honest man, a quiet accountant with little to hide. But the day I opened his will, everything I knew collapsed. What would you do if everything your parents told you turned out to be a lie? Would you still trust your own memories? Have you ever discovered a hidden family secret? Share your experience in the comments. You never know who might relate. Hi, I'm Natalie. I'm 34 years old, and until a few months ago, I believed my life was painfully ordinary. I had a stable job, a small apartment, and a distant but respectful relationship with my parents. But everything changed the moment I received a call from my father's lawyer. My father had passed, unexpectedly. There was a will. I wasn't worried. I assumed everything would be straightforward. It wasn't. There was someone else mentioned in the will, a beneficiary I'd never heard of, not a friend, not a distant relative, but someone listed as my firstborn. I was raised as an only child. From that moment, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts raced with questions, doubts, and memories that no longer made sense. When I started digging, I thought I was searching for a sibling, but I uncovered something much worse. My parents had lived a second life, a hidden life of deceit, deception, and calculated crime. They weren't who I thought they were, and the worst part? Their final scam involved me. Let's get into my story. The lawyer's office smelled of old leather and stale coffee, the kind of place that felt frozen in time. I sat across from Mr. Hargrove, a man whose gray suit matched his thinning hair, his desk cluttered with papers and a single wilting plant. My hands were folded in my lap, my purse resting against my ankle. I was still processing my father's death. A heart attack, they said, sudden and merciless. The funeral had been last week, a small affair with a handful of distant cousins and a few of his old colleagues. I hadn't cried much. Grief was there, but it was quiet, like a shadow I hadn't fully acknowledged. Hargrove cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses as he opened a manila folder. Natalie, thank you for coming in today. I know this is a difficult time. His voice was practiced, the kind of tone lawyers use when they're about to deliver news they'd rather not. He slid a document across the desk, its edges crisp and official. This is your father's will. He was very specific about his wishes. I nodded, expecting the usual. The house would probably go to me, maybe some savings, perhaps a few sentimental items. My father had been a practical man, an accountant who valued order above all else. Growing up, he'd always been the one to balance the checkbook, to remind me to save my allowance, to plan for the future. I assumed his will would reflect that same meticulous care. Hargrove began reading, his voice steady but deliberate. To my firstborn child, I leave the house on Willow Lane, the entirety of my savings account, and the contents of the private storage unit at Crestview Storage, Unit 214. I blinked, the words snagging in my mind like a hook. Firstborn child. The phrase felt foreign, wrong, like a line from someone else's story. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the arms of the chair. I'm sorry, what did you say? Hargrove glanced up, his brow furrowing. The house, the savings, and the storage unit are to be left to his firstborn child. I'm the only child. My voice was sharper than I intended, cutting through the quiet of the room. My heart gave a quick, unsteady thud. There's no one else. Hargrove hesitated, his fingers pausing on the document. He looked at me, then back at the paper, as if hoping the words might rearrange themselves. It seems you're not. He cleared his throat again, a nervous habit. The will explicitly names a firstborn child. There's no mistake. I stared at him, my mouth dry. What do you mean, I'm not? I was raised as an only child. My parents never mentioned anyone else. My mind raced, sifting through memories. Christmas mornings, family dinners, my father teaching me to ride a bike in the driveway. There had never been a hint of another sibling. No stories, no photos, nothing. This doesn't make sense. Hargrove shifted uncomfortably, his chair creaking. I understand this is a shock, Natalie. I don't have any further details. The will doesn't provide a name for this individual, only that they are your father's firstborn. Individual? I echoed, my voice rising. You're telling me there's someone out there, someone I've never met, who's getting everything? The house I grew up in? My father's savings? I could feel my pulse in my temples, a steady throb. Who are they? Where are they? I don't know, Hargrove admitted, spreading his hands. Your father didn't provide contact information. The will only specifies the beneficiary as his firstborn. My job is to execute his wishes, but I'll need to locate this person to proceed. I leaned back, my mind spinning. A sibling. The word felt heavy, impossible. I thought of my father, his quiet demeanor, his predictable routines, the way he'd always seemed so ordinary. Had he been hiding something this big my entire life? And my mother? Did she know? The thought sent a chill through me. My mother, now frail and living in a care home, had always been the warmer parent, the one who'd read me bedtime stories and baked cookies on rainy days. If there was another child, she'd have told me. Wouldn't she? What happens now? I asked, my voice quieter now, almost a whisper. Hargrove sighed, removing his glasses. We'll attempt to locate the beneficiary. In the meantime, you're entitled to a portion of the estate as his daughter, but the bulk of the assets, the house, the savings, the storage unit, are designated for this firstborn. I can provide you with the key to the storage unit, as your father left instructions that you should have access. A key? I frowned. Why would he want me to have access if it's not mine? I'm not sure, Hargrove said, his tone careful. Perhaps there's something he wanted you to see. I can have the key sent to you by tomorrow. I nodded, but my thoughts were elsewhere. A storage unit, a sibling, a will that turned my world upside down. I stood, my legs unsteady, and thanked Hargrove, though I barely registered his response. As I left the office, the weight of the revelation settled over me like a fog. My father, the man I'd thought I knew, had left behind a secret bigger than I could comprehend, and I was determined to find out what it was. If you've made it this far, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I truly hope you're enjoying the story. It means so much to have you here, sharing this moment with me. Please take a second to tell me where you're watching from, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so we can keep sharing these powerful stories together. Now, let's continue with my story. The next morning, the key arrived in a small padded envelope, no note attached. It was a simple brass key, the kind you'd expect for a padlock, with a tag that read, Crestview Storage, Unit 214. I held it in my palm, its weight heavier than it should have been. I hadn't slept much the night before, my mind replaying Hargrove's words, the phrase firstborn child echoing like a taunt. I'd called my mother's care home, but the nurse said she was resting and not up for visitors. I'd try again tomorrow. For now, the storage unit was my only lead. Crestview Storage was on the edge of town, a sprawling complex of low gray buildings surrounded by a chain-link fence. The gate was open, and I drove through, my heart pounding as I scanned the unit numbers. 214 was in the back, tucked between two larger units. Its roll-up door rusted at the edges. I parked and stepped out, the key cold in my hand. The lock clicked open with a reluctant groan, and I lifted the door, the metal screeching as it rose. Inside, the unit was dimly lit, the air thick with dust. Boxes were stacked along the walls, some labeled, others unmarked. A filing cabinet stood in one corner, its drawers slightly ajar. In the center, a small table held a single photo frame, its glass cracked. I picked up the frame, my breath catching. The photo showed my parents, younger, maybe in their 20s, smiling at the camera. My father had his arm around my mother, and she was holding a baby. Not me. The baby had dark hair, unlike my blonde curls, and was wrapped in a blue blanket. I stared at the image, my chest tightening. Who was this child? Why had I never seen this photo before? I set the frame down and moved to the filing cabinet, my hands trembling as I opened the top drawer. Inside were folders, each labeled with names I didn't recognize: Margaret Ellison, David Carter, Susan Hayes. I pulled one out and flipped it open. It contained a driver's license, a social security card, and a passport, all with my father's photo, but under the name David Carter. My stomach churned. I opened another folder: Susan Hayes. This time it was my mother's face staring back at me, her smile unfamiliar, almost forced. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice swallowed by the silence of the unit. I rifled through more folders, finding at least a dozen different identities, each with meticulously crafted documents. My parents, the people who'd raised me, had lived under false names. Why? What were they hiding? I spent the next hour searching the unit, my hands growing dusty as I opened boxes and sifted through papers. I found bank statements for accounts I'd never heard of, leases for apartments in cities I'd never visited, and a notebook filled with cryptic notes in my father's handwriting, dates, names, and numbers that made no sense. By the time I left, my head was spinning, but I took the photo and a few of the ID documents with me. I needed answers, and there was only one person left who could give them. The care home was a 40-minute drive, and I spent the entire trip rehearsing what I'd say. My mother had always been my ally, the one who'd listen when my father was too busy with work. But now I wasn't sure who she was anymore. The photo of the baby burned in my mind, along with the fake IDs. Had she been lying to me my whole life? When I arrived, the nurse led me to my mother's room. She was sitting by the window, her frail frame wrapped in a shawl, her eyes fixed on the garden outside. She looked older than I remembered, her once vibrant hair now thin and gray. "Mom," I said softly, closing the door behind me. She turned, her face lighting up for a moment before her expression faltered. "Natalie, you didn't call. I needed to see you." I sat across from her, pulling the photo from my bag. "I found this in Dad's storage unit. Who is this baby?" Her eyes widened, and she reached for the photo, her hands trembling. For a moment, she said nothing, her gaze fixed on the image. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You shouldn't have opened that." "Who is it, Mom?" I pressed, leaning closer. "The will said Dad had a firstborn child. Is this them? Why didn't you ever tell me?" She shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line. "No more questions, Natalie. If you love me, stop digging." "Stop digging?" I stood, my voice shaking. "You're telling me to ignore this? To pretend I didn't find fake IDs with your face on them? To act like I don't have a sibling out there somewhere? Mom, what's going on?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't answer. Instead, she clutched the photo to her chest and turned back to the window, her silence louder than any confession. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she told me the truth, but I couldn't. Not yet. As I drove home, my mother's words echoed in my mind. Stop digging. But I couldn't. Not when the life I'd known was crumbling. Not when I was starting to suspect that my parents' secrets were tied to me in ways I couldn't yet understand. Somewhere out there was a sibling I'd never met, and a truth my parents had buried. I was going to find both, no matter what it cost. What would you do if your entire childhood suddenly felt like a lie? Would you open that storage unit, or would you pretend it never happened? I left the care home with my mother's words clawing at me. Stop digging. Her refusal to explain the photo, the fake IDs, or the mysterious firstborn child burned like a betrayal. The drive home was a blur, my hands tight on the steering wheel, the photo of my parents with that unknown baby tucked in my bag like a ticking bomb. I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when every memory of my childhood felt like a lie. The storage unit had given me fragments, fake identities, cryptic notes, but no answers. My mother wouldn't talk, so I'd have to find this sibling myself. Whoever they were, they held the key to my parents' secrets, and maybe to mine. Back at my apartment, I spread the documents from the storage unit across my kitchen table, the fake IDs staring up at me like ghosts. Margaret Ellison, David Carter, Susan Hayes. My parents' faces, but not their names. I opened my laptop and started searching, cross-referencing the names with public records, social media, anything I could find. Hours passed, my coffee growing cold, but I hit dead end after dead end. The identities were shells, carefully crafted but leading nowhere. Then I found it, a single bank statement from one of the accounts, listing a transfer to a J. Black in a small town 2 hours away. No full name, no address, but it was something. I typed J. Black into a search engine, narrowing it to the town, Ellswood. A few profiles popped up, but one caught my eye. Jaden Black, 34, same age as me. His social media was sparse, a few photos of a quiet life, hiking trails, a dog, a modest house. No family pictures, no mention of parents. His face didn't look like mine, but there was something in his eyes, a guarded sharpness that felt familiar. I dug deeper, checking public records. No birth certificate for Jaden Black, no trace of him before his 20s, like he'd appeared out of nowhere. My heart raced. Was this him? My father's firstborn? I spent the next day scouring his online presence, piecing together his life. He worked as a mechanic, lived alone, kept to himself. But the lack of a past gnawed at me. People don't just not exist for 2 decades. I needed to see him, to know for sure. I couldn't just show up as Natalie, his supposed sister. That could scare him off. So I booked a motel in Ellswood and crafted a cover story. I was a journalist researching small-town life, looking for locals to interview. It wasn't perfect, but it would get me close. The drive to Ellswood was tense, my mind cycling through questions. What if he knew about me? What if he didn't? What if he was dangerous? The town was small, all faded storefronts and quiet streets, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. I found Jaden's address easily, a 1-story house with a neatly trimmed lawn and a pickup truck in the driveway. I parked a block away, my hands sweaty as I rehearsed my story. When I knocked, the door opened slowly. Jaden was taller than I'd expected, his dark hair messy, his expression guarded. He wore a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, and his eyes narrowed as they met mine. "Can I help you?" His voice was low, cautious. "Hi, I'm Emily," I lied, forcing a smile. "I'm writing a piece about small-town life for a local paper. I was hoping to talk to you, get your perspective." He leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "Not much to say. I keep to myself." "It won't take long," I pressed, my pulse quickening. "Just a few questions about Ellswood, what it's like living here." He studied me for a long moment, his gaze unnerving, like he could see through my story. Then he stepped aside. "Fine, come in." The house was sparse, wood floors, a worn couch, a coffee table with a single mug. I scanned the room as I sat, looking for clues. A bookshelf held a few novels, a framed photo of his dog. Then I saw it on a side table, a small, faded picture of a blonde girl, maybe 5 years old, in a park. My breath caught. It was me. I recognized the blue dress, the swing set. My father had taken that photo. How did Jaden have it? "You look like her," Jaden said suddenly, his voice cold. I froze, my eyes snapping to his. "Like who?" He didn't answer, just watched me, his jaw tight. "Never mind," he said finally, standing. "I've got work to do. You should go." I wanted to push, to demand answers, but his tone was final, his posture rigid. I thanked him and left, my mind reeling. That photo, my photo, in his house. He knew something, maybe everything, but he wasn't talking, not yet. I didn't sleep that night. The photo of me in Jaden's house haunted me, a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Why did he have it? Was he my brother? And if he was, why had my parents kept us apart? I thought of my father's will, leaving everything to his firstborn. Jaden was the same age as me, but the will was clear, firstborn. Did that mean he was older, even by months? Or was there something else I was missing? I went back to Ellswood the next day, no pretense this time. I needed the truth, and I wasn't leaving without it. When I knocked on Jaden's door, he opened it with a scowl. "You again," he said, not moving to let me in. "What do you want?" "I know who you are," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. "You're Jaden Black. You're in my father's will, and you have a photo of me in your house. Who are you to me?" His expression flickered, surprise, then something harder. He stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. "You were never supposed to know," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "Know what?" I stepped closer, refusing to back down. "That you're my brother? That my parents lied to me my whole life? Why do you have my picture? Why did they leave you everything?" He looked away, his hands clenching into fists. For a moment I thought he'd walk away, but then he sighed, his shoulders slumping. "You want the truth? Fine, but you're not gonna like it." He gestured to the porch steps, and we sat, the air heavy between us. "Your parents, our parents, weren't accountants," he began, his voice rough. "They were con artists. They built fake identities, ran scams, bled people dry. Small-time stuff at first, fake charities, forged checks, then bigger, bank fraud, investment schemes. They were good, Natalie. Too good." I stared at him, my throat tight. "You're lying. My dad he was boring. He balanced books. He paid taxes." Jaden laughed, a bitter sound. "That's what they wanted you to think. They raised you in that little town, gave you the perfect suburban life. But me? I got the other side. They dragged me from city to city, taught me how to lie, how to steal. I was their apprentice until I was 16. Then I walked away, cut contact, built my own life." I shook my head, my mind struggling to process. "Why didn't I know about you? Why keep us apart?" "They had plans," Jaden said, his eyes distant. "You were their clean slate, the kid they could raise without the dirt. They wanted you to believe the lie, to live it. But me? I was too deep in their world. They couldn't trust me to stay quiet." "Then why the will?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why leave you the house, the money, everything?" Jaden looked at me, his gaze steady, unflinching. "Because you're the final mark." The words hit like a punch. "What?" "They didn't leave me the estate to reward me," he said. "It's a setup. The house, the savings, the storage unit, it's all dirty, tied to their last scam. They knew you'd dig, Natalie. They counted on it. You're supposed to find me, fight for the estate, kick up dust. And when you do, the feds start sniffing. The money's flagged, the house is under surveillance. You take the fall, not them. They're gone. You're the one left holding the bag." I stood, my legs shaky. "You're saying they used me? My own parents?" Jaden nodded, his expression grim. "That's who they were. I'm sorry." I turned away, tears burning my eyes. My parents, the people who'd tucked me in at night, who'd cheered at my school plays, had planned this. I was their pawn, their final con. And Jaden, he was my brother, but he'd known the truth all along. I wanted to hate him, to scream, but all I felt was emptiness. As I walked to my car, Jaden called after me. "Natalie, be careful. You're in deeper than you know." I didn't look back, but his words stayed with me, a warning I couldn't ignore. My parents' secrets were unraveling, and I was at the center. Jaden's words echoed in my head as I drove away from his porch. "You're the final mark." My parents, the people I'd trusted most, had built my life on lies, orchestrating a con that used me as its centerpiece. The revelation left me hollow, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Jaden, my brother, had known the truth all along, raised in their shadow while I was kept in the dark. But his warning, "You're in deeper than you know," clung to me, a knot of dread tightening in my chest. I wanted to believe I could walk away, leave the estate and their secrets behind. But the photo of me in Jaden's house, the fake IDs, the will, they were threads I couldn't untangle. And I wasn't sure I wanted to. Back at my apartment, the world felt different, sharper. Every creak of the floorboards, every passing car outside, set my nerves on edge. I tried calling Jaden the next morning, needing more answers, but his number was disconnected, the line dead. I searched his social media, gone. His profiles had vanished overnight. Panic crept in. Had he run, or had something happened to him? I thought of his guarded eyes, the way he'd hesitated before telling me the truth. He'd been careful, but not careful enough, and now he was gone. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking. You won't like what you find." My breath caught, my fingers hovering over the screen. I typed a reply. "Who is this?" But another message came first. "Walk away, Natalie. Last warning." I stared at the words, my heart pounding. Someone knew what I was doing. Someone was watching. The next day, I noticed the car, a black sedan parked across the street from my apartment, its tinted windows reflecting the morning light. When I left for work, it followed, keeping its distance but never out of sight. At a red light, I glanced in my rear-view mirror, trying to make out the driver, but the windows were too dark. My pulse raced. I took a sharp turn, then another, weaving through side streets until the sedan disappeared. But the fear stayed, a weight I couldn't shake. If you were in my shoes, would you keep digging? Or run? Would you want the truth if it meant questioning every memory you hold dear? Let me know, and don't forget to like this video if it's keeping you on the edge. I couldn't run. Not yet. The storage unit was my only lead, the one place where my parents' secrets were tangible. I drove to Crestview Storage under a gray sky, the key heavy in my pocket. The unit's rusted door groaned as I opened it, the air inside thick with dust and memory. I'd searched it before, but I'd been too shocked to see clearly. Now I moved methodically, opening boxes, flipping through folders, looking for anything I'd missed. In the filing cabinet, buried beneath a stack of bank statements, I found a folder labeled N. Harper. My name. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a driver's license with my photo, but the name wasn't Natalie Harper. It was Natalie Grayson. A social security card, a passport, even a birth certificate, all under Grayson. The documents were pristine, professional, just like the ones for my parents' fake identities. I sank to the floor, the papers spilling around me. My birth identity, the one I'd lived with for 34 years, didn't exist. Natalie Harper was a fabrication, a name my parents had planted. Was I part of the plan all along? I whispered, my voice breaking in the silence. The question hung in the air, unanswered. I thought of my childhood. School plays, summer vacations, my father's quiet pride when I graduated college. Had it all been a performance? Had they raised me to be their perfect pawn? A clean identity to anchor their final scam? I kept digging, desperation driving me. In another box, I found a ledger, its pages filled with my father's precise handwriting. Transactions, dates, account numbers. One entry stood out, a transfer of $1.2 million to an account in the name of Natalie Harper, my legal name. The date was 6 months ago, just before my father's death. My stomach churned. This wasn't an inheritance. It was a setup. My phone buzzed, startling me. Another text from the unknown number. You were warned. I stood, my legs unsteady, and shoved the ledger and fake documents into my bag. I needed to get out, to think. But as I stepped outside, a car pulled into the lot. A black sedan, the same one from before. It stopped, idling, its driver hidden behind tinted glass. I froze, my heart hammering. Then the car sped off, tires screeching, leaving me alone in the empty lot. I drove to a diner, my hands shaking as I ordered coffee I didn't drink. The ledger sat on the table, its pages a map of my parents' betrayal. The $1.2 million wasn't just money, it was dirty, tied to their scams. And they'd put it in my name, ensuring I'd be the one to face the consequences. I thought of Jaden's warning, his disappearance. Had he known this was coming? Had he tried to protect me, or was he part of it too? Then I saw the news alert on my phone. Federal investigation into Crestview Storage Unit linked to money laundering. My blood ran cold. The article mentioned suspicious activity and ongoing surveillance. The feds were closing in, and my name was on the account. My parents had planned this, their final con, with me as the fall guy. Natalie Harper, the daughter they'd raised, was nothing but a ghost they'd created to take the blame. I leaned back, my mind racing. The threatening texts, the car, Jaden's disappearance, it all pointed to one truth. I was running out of time. My parents' lies had caught up with me, and the life I'd known was unraveling. I could run, disappear like Jaden, but that meant abandoning everything, my job, my home, my identity. Or I could fight, confront the feds, expose my parents' crimes. But what if the truth destroyed me? What if Natalie Harper was never meant to survive this? I closed the ledger, my resolve hardening. My parents had used me, but I wasn't their puppet anymore. I'd find the truth, whatever it cost. And if someone was watching, following, threatening, they'd have to catch me first. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat with the ledger, its pages exposing my parents' final betrayal. $1.2 million in dirty money, funneled into an account under my name, Natalie Harper. A name that wasn't even real. The federal investigation into Crestview storage loomed like a storm, and the black sedan, the threatening texts, Jaden's disappearance, they all screamed one truth. I was trapped in my parents' web, their last con closing around me. I clutched my coffee, its warmth long gone, and stared at the fake ID labeled Natalie Grayson. Who was I, really? Had every moment of my life been scripted by people I thought loved me? I couldn't stay still. I needed to move, to act before the feds, or whoever was following me, caught up. The storage unit had given me the ledger, but there had to be more. Something to prove I wasn't complicit, to expose my parents' crimes without destroying myself. I thought of Jaden, his warning about the estate being a trap. If he was right, the money, the house, the storage unit, they were all bait. But for what? And why me? As I stepped out of the diner, a man approached, his face half hidden by a baseball cap. He was middle-aged, with a lean build and eyes that darted nervously. "Natalie Harper?" he asked, his voice low. I froze, my hand tightening on my bag. "Who are you?" "A friend of your father's," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Name's Carl. We need to talk, somewhere private." Every instinct screamed to run, but his mention of my father stopped me. Against my better judgment, I nodded. "There's a park across the street. We can talk there." The park was quiet, its benches empty under the late afternoon sun. We sat, and Carl leaned forward, his hands clasped. "Your parents trusted you to keep the money safe," he said, his words careful, like he was testing me. "Money?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart raced. "What are you talking about?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is an account password. Offshore. They set it up for you." I took the paper, my fingers trembling. "Why are you giving me this? Who are you?" "Someone who owed your dad a favor," Carl said, his eyes flicking to the street. "He said if anything happened to him, I should find you. Give you this. That's all I know." Before I could ask more, he stood, pulling his cap lower. "Don't call me. Don't look for me. Just be careful." He walked away, blending into the foot traffic, leaving me with the paper burning in my hand. Back at my apartment, I locked the door and opened my laptop, my pulse pounding. The paper listed a bank name, an account number, and a password. I hesitated, knowing this could be a trap, but I had to know. I logged into the offshore bank's site, entered the details, and held my breath. The screen loaded, and my jaw dropped. The account balance was $4.7 million. Not the $1.2 million from the ledger. This was more, much more. And it was all in my name. I leaned back, my mind spinning. My parents hadn't just set me up to take the fall. They'd hidden millions, using me as their vault. But why give me access? Why now? Carl's words echoed. They trusted you to keep the money safe. Did they expect me to run with it? To disappear like Jaden? Or was this another layer of their con, baiting me to touch the money so the feds could pounce? I paced my apartment, the walls feeling too close. The black sedan hadn't reappeared, but the text still haunted me. "Walk away, Natalie." I thought of Jaden, his guarded eyes, his sudden absence. Had he known about this account? Was he part of this? Or had he fled to escape it? I tried his number again, but it was still disconnected. I was alone, drowning in questions with no one to trust. The next morning, I drove to the library, using a public computer to avoid being traced. I searched for Carl, but without a last name, it was useless. I dug into the offshore bank, finding only vague mentions of its ties to money laundering, exactly the kind of place my parents would use. The more I learned, the worse it got. The 4.7 million wasn't just dirty, it was radioactive, tied to their scams, maybe worse. And my name on it made me a target, not just for the feds, but for anyone else they'd crossed. I thought of my mother, her frail hands clutching that photo, her plea to stop digging. Had she known about this account? Had she been protecting me, or keeping me in the dark to ensure the plan worked? I couldn't face her, not yet. The betrayal cut too deep. Instead, I returned to the ledger, flipping through its pages for clues. One entry caught my eye, a coded note beside the $1.2 million transfer. For N final phase, my initials, their endgame. I slammed the ledger shut, my breath ragged. The money, the fake identity, the estate, it was all connected, a machine my parents had built with me at its heart. But what was the final phase? To frame me? To make me disappear? Or something worse? I needed to find Jaden. He'd known enough to warn me, to vanish before it got worse. If anyone could explain this, it was him. I drove to Ellswood, hoping to find a trace of him. His house was dark, the mailbox overflowing. A neighbor said he'd left days ago, no word on where. I sat in my car, frustration boiling over. Every lead was a dead end, every answer a new question. But as I started the engine, my phone buzzed with another text. You touched the account. Bad move. My blood ran cold. Someone was watching closer than I'd thought. I sped back to my apartment, my eyes scanning the rearview mirror for the black sedan. It didn't appear, but the fear was constant now, a shadow I couldn't outrun. Inside, I double-checked the locks and sat with the ledger, the fake ID, and the account password. My parents had planned this, every step, but they'd underestimated me. I wasn't their pawn anymore. I'd expose their crimes, find Jaden, and clear my name, even if it meant risking everything. The $4.7 million was a trap, but it was also leverage. If I could trace its source, I could prove I wasn't involved, but touching it again could seal my fate. If you had the chance to walk away with stolen money you never asked for, but that's legally tied to you, what would you do? Take it? Turn it in? Let's talk in the comments. This story's just heating up. The $4.7 million in the offshore account glowed on my laptop screen, a trap my parents had woven into my name. Natalie Harper, or Grayson, or whoever I was. The threatening texts, the black sedan, Jaden's disappearance, they all pushed me toward a breaking point. My parents had made me their final con, but I wasn't going down with their lies. The ledger, the fake ID, and Carl's cryptic warning, they trusted you to keep the money safe, were pieces of a puzzle I could no longer ignore. I had to end this, even if it meant losing everything. I contacted a lawyer, not Hargrove, but someone new, unconnected to my father's will. I laid out everything, the storage unit, the fake identities, the ledger, the offshore account. She advised turning it all over to the feds, anonymously, if possible, to avoid prosecution. It was risky, but it was my only shot. I packaged the documents, the password, and a detailed letter explaining my parents' scams, leaving out just enough to protect myself. I dropped it at a federal office, my heart pounding as I walked away. Days later, the news broke. A major money laundering bust tied to Crestview storage. No mention of me. My lawyer confirmed the feds were tracing the funds, but my name was clear. For now. The relief was fleeting. I'd survived, but the truth about my parents left scars that wouldn't fade. They'd raised me to be their pawn, and I'd never know why. I tracked Jaden down in a new town, a quiet bar where he worked under a different name. He looked tired, his guarded eyes softening when he saw me. You did it, he said, wiping down the counter. You turned it in. I had to, I replied, my voice steady. I wasn't going to be their scapegoat. He nodded. No smile, no warmth. Thanks for not letting it bury us both. We didn't hug. We didn't talk about family. The word felt too heavy, too broken. But in his glance, something was forgiven. Not the years of secrets, but the weight we'd both carried. He poured me a coffee, and we sat in silence, two strangers bound by a past neither of us chose. I drove home under a starless sky, the ledger and fake ID gone, my apartment feeling emptier than ever. I didn't get closure. I didn't get a normal family. But I did get the truth. My parents were con artists, and I was their final mark, but I'd rewritten their ending. I'd chosen to walk away, to live as someone they couldn't control. The truth wasn't comfort, it wasn't healing, but it was mine, and sometimes that has to be enough. So tell me, if you found out your identity was a carefully designed lie, would you still call yourself you? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story got you thinking, hit that subscribe button. While you are at it, check out the video currently showing on your screen. See you in the next one.